All right, forget the rest of the intro. You guys have been waiting long enough. Obviously, we're running late. Hey guys, welcome to SheKnowsArsenal. My name is Jessica and I'm your host, and you can follow me on Twitter at @itchesino. Wow, what a game between Spain and Croatia. Definitely made up for the boringness of the games that happened yesterday. I mean, who knew we were going to be in for an 8-goal thriller, you know? So that was an amazing game, and that's obviously why we're a little bit late. So we apologize for that. But what we're going to be doing today is basically in a transfer roundup for Arsenal. Well, obviously Arsenal, who else, you know, but transfer roundup of all of the transfers that have been, or the transfer rumors that have come out in the last couple of days, just kind of catch up on some things, talk about some of the targets. And in particular, we're going to be spending a little bit more time on Tavares, Ramsdale, and Sanches. And then we'll just kind of do a general update on some of the other players. So before we get started, make sure that you like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new. And I have the pleasure of sharing this show or whatever, talking to Harry today. So I'll go ahead and bring him in. Hey, Harry.
Hey, what's going on?
Oh, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing? That was a good game, right? That was a really good game. It was an amazing
game. Yeah, it was so good. And like, honestly, I've been enjoying the Euros, but do you think this was the best game? What do you think out of all the games?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, from a spectacle, yeah, there was awful defending throughout, right? Croatia was so bad at the back. But yeah, I thought it was a great game. I thought Modric at times was just class. Like, that guy is just ridiculous, especially at that age. Every pass he plays is almost perfect. And there's a few times when you think, oh, you probably can't play that pass, but he plays it in a certain way that just makes the pass work. So I thought he was brilliant. Morata was with a good finish. Yeah, brilliant game. Loved it. If Croatia took that first chance in extra time, could have been so different, right? And then before you know it, they're 2 goals down. So yeah, fine margins again, but a great game.
How crazy is it that Spain has gone from a team that literally cannot score, like from a almost like meme-like quality jokes of them not being able to score, to being the type of team that can score 10 goals in 200 minutes of football? That's crazy.
Yeah, it is, Matt. Especially when there's not really like a recognised goal scorer either, and they seem to rotate the front three quite a bit. So, yeah, it is mad, but it just shows you. But let's not forget though, Croatia at the back were really, really poor. Like that was like championship style defending. Going forward, the fullbacks were decent, but at the back, I mean, it was really, really ropey.
So, what players that have played today do you think will be linked with tomorrow? It's got to be at least one. Got to be at least one, you know, I'm going to link to somebody.
Hopefully not Croatia's left back, because he was awful. He was so poor, so poor. He's so like, it just whenever someone got near him, it just seemed like he would just like try to, I don't know, like run past them or try and get the ball in a really weird way. I don't know. I'll have Luka Modric on loan for a season. I don't know if that's a possibility. I thought he was class. Who knows? There's obviously a few good players for Croatia's team, but I think Spain are almost like where we are as a club. Like the commentators are constantly referring to Iniesta and to Xavi, and you know, and it's so hard for them to continue from that era of what was one of the greatest ever international sides, and their players are probably feeling that pressure all the time, but ultimately, like if they carry on how they are, they could go even further. We could see them in the semis or even in the final, because they're relatively solid at the back and they seem to get a few goals, you know, in their front three. So they could actually go quite far, even though they're not amazing. They don't look amazing to watch at times, or it looks a little bit subdued or suspect at the back, they're still scoring goals, and they're relatively solid at the back, minus today, of course.
Yeah. And just kind of going back to what you were saying, like Murata even talked about how it's so hard for them to live up to those expectations and all that kind of stuff. So the expectations need to be changed. But ultimately they've done well, you know, to win these last 2 games and win them in the way that they did. So good for them. You know, but speaking of left back, since you mentioned the Croatia left back, let's just jump straight into it and talk a little bit about Nuno Tavares, who's been linked to Arsenal. It actually came out yesterday in the evening. I saw it then, and I was thinking to myself, like, wow, this is a good kind of link to a young left back. We've actually been linked with him before. Liverpool was linked to him as well last season. So I think before they brought into Sycamus, this is somebody that they looked at. And I'm thinking this is the direction that I kind of wanted to go into, somebody younger with good upside that kind of plays similarly to Tierney. Obviously, he's not as good as Tierney, but you know, we want somebody that can put in the same type of crosses and is relatively quick, you know, an attacking fullback, you know, something like that. And I also saw from some clips that I had looked at that he can play on the right-hand side. And then, of course, the clips of him kissing his dog came out, and then that just overtook everything. People aren't really talking about what kind of player he is. So, I mean, if we want to, we can laugh about it really quick. It's kind of funny. And then we'll talk more about the player. But did you see the weird videos of him?
Yeah,
with the dog?
footballers and weird videos. You know, if it's not Patrice Evra like licking a chicken or footballers kissing dogs, I mean, they've maybe just got a little bit too much time on their hand. It is a little bit of a weird video, but as a player, he looks like he'll be quite a good signing. Really, really tall, so probably different to Kieran Tierney in terms of maybe style. I think ultimately they are both attacking fullbacks, but he seems a bit more of a dribbler than Kieran Tierney. Kieran Tierney's style is like really compact. When he has the ball, it's all very close to him, and it's like one touch, two touch, get a crossing or a quick dart inside and a pass or a shot. This guy seems a little bit more expressive when he's going forward and when he's dribbling, which is probably why you can see him playing on the right a little bit as well. So he seems a bit more of like a natural footballer. But yeah, quite tall, looks athletic, looks like he'll get up and down the wing. So yeah, I mean, it seems like a good signing. I would have preferred someone as a backup option with a little bit more experience, but I suppose this probably raises the question or almost confirms that maybe there's injury worries from Kieran Tierney perspective, and maybe they want someone who can potentially fit in for a really long period of time. Because I think whether Kieran Tierney can maintain, 38 games a season is still unproven. And we even saw in the Euros, right? He got injured in training, so he had to miss a few games here and there, or missed the one game, here and there. So he was fit for the England game. So I think maybe getting someone younger is just because we just need someone who can potentially take over from him for a long period of time. And with the likes of Patrick Van Aanholt and Bertrand, you might not be able to get that with those guys. So I think it could be quite a good signing. But I'm a bit skeptical in terms of the price and whether it will actually happen or not, because I feel like if the budget is still relatively conservative, I have a feeling that we'll still prefer a free transfer over spending 10 12 million. I know it's not a huge amount of money, but if we're talking about getting a goalkeeper and an attacking midfielder, maybe a left back on a free transfer might be the better bit of business, but we shall wait and see.
I mean, the deal feels pretty close, quite a few people like Fabrizio Romano, and depending on what you think, if it is reliable or not, but the deal seems to be pretty advanced, which to me is a sign of the way that Arsenal is doing business this summer. Is the link is relatively like very faint or non-existent at all, and then the deal is almost done. That's kind of similar to Lokanga.
Right? It came out
exactly.
of nowhere.
It came out of nowhere. Exactly. And what Charles Watts and Ornstein and Fabrizio Romano have all said is that it's not 12, it's closer to 7-8 million. So, from a price perspective, that's really good. And from a profile perspective, it makes sense. But kind of, how I think about it too is I think the club is really trying to bring in high upside players so that if they play a couple games. Basically as soon as you play a couple games at the Emirates or you play a couple games for Arsenal, your value increases, especially if you do relatively well and in the Premier League in general. And this player, he may just play cups, but the reality is with Tierney's injuries, he'll probably play more than that. And if he has a couple of good showings, just think about how his value will increase just like that from playing maybe 7 to 8 games for Arsenal Football Club next season. Again, if he does well. And then we're looking at a player that we brought in for 7 to 8 million, and maybe, he's worth 20, 25 million just after the season. So for me, it's a no-brainer, but I do understand like maybe his experience level is not that high. Maybe he only played about 15 games for Benfica, so he doesn't really have like that level of experience. But again, how could we get Van Arnhold or Ryan Bertrand on a 2-year deal with moderate wages? I think that's a little bit like maybe it would just be too difficult. So, but we'll see how it works out if it happens. There are some comments about, his comparisons to Guendouzi in terms of he had some attitude issues or whatever. The main focus of that being that he was in a video with his barber or something like that. And they were talking about the left back that plays in front of him not being good enough and maybe criticizing him a little bit. And, I think my question to everybody is kind of like, if we're only going to recruit players with spotless, backgrounds, then we won't really be signing anybody.
Yeah, unfortunately, not everyone can be like Bukayo Saka.
Yeah.
Not everyone has the same, level-headed and just that level of humility that you want from footballers. Unfortunately, people who come from different backgrounds, they just might be slightly more arrogant or cocky, or just their personality traits. But yeah, I know what you're saying. I suppose. Yeah, I mean, once you see someone like Bukayo Saka or ESR, and they just seem like really level-headed guys that love the club, and then you hear the stories about Guendouzi and the attitude problems, you probably maybe we make too many assumptions that every player, because he's maybe said something or there's a silly video of him, that he's going to be like a Guendouzi or whatnot, which is a fair assumption, but
right.
Ultimately, we have to give these players a chance, right? And I think Guendouzi is quite a unique case in terms of his character. A good signing, obviously came in, played loads of games, and then Brighton away lost his head, said a few things, and obviously had those things in Dubai. So it's hard to link the two, but I understand why I understand why fans would have a few reservations. My only reservations just come from not knowing what our budget is, or not knowing how much we have to spend. And if we could get a backup left back for free, I feel like it makes sense. Furthermore, I am big on players who have experience in the Premier League. But I appreciate as well that that doesn't mean that you can't sign someone from abroad and they're not going to be a great signing. But I suppose we've all got our kind of little wants if we were.
Yeah, for sure. And we have to see how it works out on the pitch. I think that's my main thing, is that we can always make assumptions about how things will go, but it could go completely different, so we have to kind of see what happens. But I guess that's not as controversial as the Ramsdale one. I think the Ramsdale one is really the one that Arsenal fans are really looking at like, this is a huge mistake. This is stupid. Why? He's not good. He's not this. And, for me, it's just about perspective. I still think that, yeah, you guys, I know that a lot of you guys will probably catch this on the replay because France and Switzerland's coming on. That's perfectly fine. We're going to run through these quite quickly. But Ramsdale, I think he's just okay. I don't think he's as bad as people are making him out to seem, but he's just okay. But he's young. The average age for goalkeepers like in the league is like 28 or something like that. So him being 23, that doesn't mean that he can't improve. I think the 35 million that was quoted from the Daily Mail, who any other day would be seen as unreliable, but when he's talking about something that suits our agenda, all of a sudden it's super reliable information. He just said it said $35 million rated. That doesn't mean anything, but even at 20 million, it seems like a lot for a backup, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It's a really weird one. I try to see like the positives in most things, but in this one, I'm like, because ultimately, he hasn't really impressed me. He was better at Bournemouth than he was at Sheffield United, and that's probably more a reflection of how Bournemouth play in comparison to Sheffield United played last season. I know he's been relegated twice, so I'm not going to hold that against him. But just in terms of his overall performance, I mean, he's just been okay.
Mm-hmm.
He's okay with the ball at his feet. And for me, we already have an okay goalkeeper. So I want us to either upgrade. When we talk about Rob Holding, we have an okay or good centre half, and we're potentially going to get Ben White, who is an improved version of Rob Holding, or a much improved version of Rob Holding. So that's where I'm a little bit confused as to why we would go in for Ramsdale. So short term, it doesn't make sense. Long term, it could make sense because let's not forget, people and players can improve. If they're average now, they can go on to become great players. It's happened many times before. And maybe a new environment, a higher quality of players,
Mm-hmm.
better defenders in front of him might mean that he flourishes at Arsenal. But I don't think it just doesn't make sense to me. Like, as a backup goalkeeper, why would you spend that much money on him?
Maybe he's not a backup. Maybe
yeah,
it's
well,
a succession plan for Leno. I think we don't.
That makes less sense to me though as well.
To me, it would make.
That's like, whoa.
Yeah, maybe not. I don't know. This is probably the one out of all of the more further along links that I would say makes the least amount of sense to me. But at the same time, I'm still willing to give it like a chance to see how it shakes out. Just because they want 25 million doesn't mean that that's what they're going to get. Just because he isn't the best now doesn't mean he's going to be horrible, for the rest of his life or whatever. And I guess my thing is the overreaction to it. It's not that if you don't think the fee is right, then just stick with that. But then it's like, oh, the fee is not right. He's the worst goalkeeper I've ever seen, and the window is a failure. And like that's just too far for me. I can't go there, so not the best, fees kind of sketchy. We'll see how it shakes out. But yeah, that one's a big question mark.
Yeah, I mean, if we starting with Ramsdale as our number one next season, I'd be really surprised. I'm not going to say I'm against it, but I'd be really confused as to what the long-term plan is goalkeeper-wise. I don't know if you remember Richard Wright when he was meant to be taken over from David Seaman, and it really didn't work out for him. So we haven't had a lot of luck with goalkeepers recently. I'm trying to think of the last top-class goalkeeper we've actually had. Is it? It's not Jens Lehmann, is it? It is, isn't it?
Yeah, everybody else has been horrendous, really. Just not good enough.
How bad is that, though? How sad is that? That since Jens Lehmann, we haven't had.
Yeah.
Who have we had? Like Almunia, Fabianski, Szczesny, Czech, Leno, right? That's about it, isn't it? Is there anyone else in between? Yeah, no. I mean, how bad is that? Like, come on. Like, how can for that period of time have you not found like an established top goalkeeper? That's madness. Oh. Mind blown. Sorry, I've just went off there, but that is. And
this is kind of where I am. I'm like, okay, well, if we got Onana and Leno left and we brought in both of them, then I probably wouldn't be like so. But I'm like, so the whole thing with the Onana scenario for me, it comes down to it went quiet because Leno's not going anywhere. I think maybe they know he wants to leave, but unless somebody actually wants to buy him for what Arsenal want, for him, then there's nothing we really can do, because you can't really bring in Onana who will be ready to play in November, and have Leno as well, especially when I think we want the number 2 goalkeeper to be English. So it doesn't really make sense. The Onana deal doesn't make sense at the moment. What I did read is that he's thinking about just doing his last year at Ajax, and then after that he'll have obviously more suitors and all that kind of stuff. And so we might be out of that deal, so I would just say keep that one. Maybe don't put so much on it because I don't think it's going to happen. But even think about like Matty Ryan. People are like, well, why don't we get Matty Ryan? I'm like, you guys, like, he's being offered a first. Celtic want him as the number 1 goalkeeper, and he's not a free signing. I think people think he's free. He's not free. He has a whole nother year on his contract. So you actually have to negotiate with Brighton. And so that makes it difficult, but the Ramsdale one is just very confusing. I haven't really seen a lot of good arguments for why it makes a lot of sense. I just try to add perspective in terms of he's not literally the worst goalkeeper you've ever seen. Runnerson plays for us. You know what I mean? Like, he's on our team. We've seen what the worst goalkeeper looks like, so we'll see what happens, but you guys let us know in the chat box what you think about Ramsdale. I'm sure it'll be a little bit negative, but it's fine. This one makes sense to me why people will be a little bit more negative on it. So Something else we can talk about is Renato Sanches. You know, he's a player that's being loosely linked to Arsenal. And I think it was let me see. Let me make sure I get the right. I can't remember who the person was, to be honest, but his name is, it's Dean James AFC. And this is via 90 Min Football. We've reportedly asked Lille to keep us informed of any developments surrounding Renato Sanches, or, you know, how much he costs or how much it would take to get him to the Emirates. It's a player that, you know, Arsenal fans are super excited about, would really, really like, you know, to have at the Emirates. I don't know how I feel about it because his injury record is pretty crazy, you know, but what do you think about Renato Sanches, and how does he really stack up to you against like Ruben Neves or Basuma?
I mean, I prefer his kind of player profile over Ruben Neves, because there's just a little bit more bite about him, a little bit more tenacity. He has a little bit more better, agility in the midfield. Could almost moves a little bit better. But like you say, the injury worry is a big issue. We have a problem, not a problem, but the Euro 2020. You know, it's a really small sample size, and obviously, you know, a few good games. It looks really, really exciting, and it's really hard because we've seen him in the Premier League at Swansea, and he really, really, really struggled. I know he had some fitness issues there, but he really struggled. And obviously, he's went to Lille and he's performed really well. But it is you know, the French league, so it's not really comparable to how it is in the Premier League. So it's tough. I was thinking today, like, if we could get him on like a year loan with an obligation to buy, I wouldn't be against it, as long as we get a Basuma and he is almost like a third or / fourth choice squad player. I wouldn't be against it, because I think it gives you something different. He likes to almost float out on the left a little bit as well. So he doesn't play that Xhaka role, but he gives you a nice bit of balance if Tierney's overlapping. I do like him. He is a good player, but I don't want to hold him accountable, or I don't want to just judge him on his time at Swansea. But I just think we need to understand that the Premier League is the toughest league in the world, and it's incredibly unforgiving. And if you have a few injury concerns in other leagues, when you come over to the Premier League, those demands are far greater. And we saw with someone like, you know, Thomas Partey, who had an immaculate injury record at Atletico, come over to the Premier League and struggle to adapt. So I'm not against it, but it's one of those ones where if it's going to cost us 20-25 million straight out or straight off the bat, I wouldn't be too keen on it. And I'm trying to be really careful with not getting excited from what I've seen in the Euros. You know, just a few games here and there in tournament football, when it's, you know, the biggest stage of their career and they're looking so much forward to it. But when you go away to whoever it is, Bournemouth or Sheffield United or Wolves away, or whoever it is, Burnley away, can you then find that same motivation and same level? I'm not sure. So yeah, I mean, listen, Basuma for me, when we're talking about central midfielders, I know you're not asking about Basuma, but that's where my head is at. It's all about Basuma for me.
It's just so funny to me how, like, when it's certain players were willing to like look past their injury records and all these other little things, you know, we have very extensive, we can really look and see how, like, Renato Sanches, I think he made big mistakes in the early parts of his career, making big moves too early. I think a lot of people forget that he was at Bayern Munich. Like, he flopped horribly there, and at Swansea. One decent game, or one decent season at Lille, where he was injured there as well, like in his first year and his second year at Lille. But he looks very good in compilations because of the way that he plays. Like, he's the type of player that makes people excited because he's a compilation type guy. But I don't really see the goals. I don't see the assists. He's not a pivot player. We would have to change to a midfield three. He'd be a third midfielder. You know, as you saw Portugal play yesterday, he was the third midfielder. It was Matinho and that Paulinho, basically the pivot type players, and he's the third man. We don't really play like that. You know, I haven't really seen us play that way. So for me, I think he's a good player, but I can't unsee his injury record. I mean, we're talking muscle injuries as well. Like, you know, things that we talk about other players being so injury prone. Like, I saw people saying like James Maddison was injury prone. That's laughable compared to Renato Sanches. So I would say let's see what happens with that. If there is any movement on it, we'll know soon, because Portugal is out of the Euros. Like, you know what I mean? So I actually would say I'd prefer Neves. And I know that's probably like very, you know, controversial, but I'm not looking for compilation guys. Like, I'm looking for people with real substantial like evidence that they can do it. And for me, it just is what it is.
Yeah.
It just is what it is.
I think if his name was Dave Smith, I don't think fans would be excited about it. Because of Renato Sanches, it's like, oh, he could be good. And obviously, he's got that wonder kid vibe about him. He was thought so highly of many years ago. So there's probably a little bit of that curiosity factor to signing him, thinking, can we be the team to finally get the best out of him? But like you say, the injury concerns are definitely something to worry about.
Yeah, I don't know if his prices went up, but it probably has from a couple of decent touches and runs with Portugal. I mean, let's call it what it is. It was a couple of nice runs and some nice, keeping people off the ball type things. If they want, 60 million for him, like it doesn't feel right. I'd rather go with what I know, like, and that's what people are saying. Like, he's techie, like, yes, he looks good in compilations, you guys, but like, does he get the goals? Does he get the assists? Like all the things that you guys are screaming for when you're talking about, well, why you don't want Basuma? Well, he doesn't really have that either. Plus, I don't think there's wouldn't be a passer in our midfield. I know Thomas has the capabilities, the passing, but Renato Sanches he's a good ball progressor, but we need something else to balance it out. There's something missing. So sorry, y'all. That's it wasn't. Renato Sanches had an outstanding tournament, but still outstanding tournaments come down to a couple of like very isolated moments. It's 4 games. Like, come on, you guys. All right. So let's move on to the Renato Sanches thing. So I want to talk about a player I know absolutely nothing about, which will probably prove to be like a very, very bad idea. But we can talk about, I think his name is Muldur. He's a player that the Athletic said that we're interested in for the right back position. He's 22 years old. He plays for Sassuolo in Serie A. I mean, he's on the full national team, but I didn't really see him play. He's relatively cheap. I think we can get him for like 10 million or something like that. Have you seen anything of him, Harry, or no?
Oh God, no, I haven't. So we can probably just move on to the next player. Is he Italian? He's Italian, right?
He's Turkish.
Turkish. Okay. Well, I thought you said, Syria. Well, I mean, I can't see that happening because I've never heard of him, and if I've never heard of him, then he can't come. That's the rules. They are the rules.
Exactly. And so, I mean, how important for you is the right back position, though? Like, just in general, we're looking at right backs, but like, if we ended up playing with Chambers and Cedric, would you be all right?
I said this last week, and I know you guys looked at me like, look, if Callum Chambers was called Calamino Chambero, and we signed him in December, right? And he came in against West Ham away, and you were to judge him on those games, West Ham onwards, or whenever it was that he came in, you'd say, this fella's decent. You'd say he's not fast, but he deals with it quite well. He's good on the ball. He's good in the air. He's got a good cross on him. Because we have all of the previous Callum Chambers moments, the away performance against Montero v Swansea when he got absolutely ripped inside out, the injuries, the relegations at Fulham and Middlesbrough. He gets a different. There's a different like perception around him. But ultimately, Callum Chambers, since he came in, has done well. Do I want him to be our starting right back? No, I don't, because as much as I like Rob Holding and Chambers and Granit Xhaka, I appreciate that we need to up the standard and up the level. But in the same respect, I do know that it can't happen for every single player. And Man United won league titles with Raphael playing right back and Darren Fletcher playing centre mid. And these weren't amazingly talented players, but they ticked boxes. They worked hard. They had a good attitude. And that's also important when you're trying to build a squad or a new culture or a new ethos. So I do agree that we should be looking for a right back. But if we were to start the season with Callum Chambers, I wouldn't be too sad. I'm not particularly keen on Cedric, but I do appreciate that he was in and out of the team a lot. So it's hard for him to get momentum. But I'm not a big fan of him. So to answer your question about the right back at Sassuolo, who I've never heard of.
I've never heard of him before. And we're not about to sit here. I'm not about to sit here and be like, oh, yeah, I know everything about him. He's whoop-de-whoop-de-whoop. We're not about to do all that today.
You could just start some like generic compliments. Well, he's good in the air. He's good with his feet. He's very, very athletic. He can go up and down. But no, I haven't seen any of him. But yeah, listen, I know that we need a new right back, but it also feels like we need a new goalkeeper, left back, centre halves, 2 centre mids, and number 10. So, and if we're being really, really honest, if we take a step back and if we say how well has Callum Chambers performed, I think we could say that he's performed pretty well. So I'm not in an urgent need to upgrade. But in the same token, if he has an absolute stinker against Brentford, first game of the season, I'll be on here saying, why didn't we get a new right back? Why didn't we get a new right back?
Oh my goodness. Dubber Ducky, thank you so much for your super chat. Dubber Ducky says, just realized we have 4 right backs, Ainsley Maitland-Niles, Bellerin, Cedric Chambers. How does this affect us getting a new right back? And I kind of wanted to talk about this a little bit in conjunction with the Bellerin news. You know, they want him, like, Inter Milan's very interested in him as a replacement for Hakimi, which I think would be a brilliant move for him. I know he kind of wants to go to Spain, or like I know him, like he texted me. What am I saying? Like I know he kind of wants to go to Spain, you know, because we talk all the time, you know. But no, but I think it would be a good move for him. But ultimately, like, they can't receive 70 million for Hakimi and then try to take Hector Bellerin on a loan with an option. I just think with some of our players, we do need to hold firm, and with Bellerin being, you know, first of all, we should be getting like 35 million for Bellerin in a non-COVID market. That's the reality. Like, we should be getting like 35. Like, it's not that difficult.
35? Do you think? Wow.
In a non-COVID market? Yeah. Yeah, I
think maybe last year we could have done that. I think his form this season kind of just took a nosedive. So I think it's a weird one.
Yeah, before COVID, like before, like, you know what I mean? Like, even, you know what I mean? I mean,
but I feel like now everyone's realized, oh, he has definitely lost his pace.
Yeah,
he's definitely went backwards technically. I feel like it's a deal that has been spoken about for so long, not Inter Milan, but Bellerin's departure. And I was almost expecting it to be done pretty much right away, almost like the Granit Xhaka one. But I get the sense that Bellerin's agents thought that the Barcelona PSG rumours would come true, and it feels like they're not. And then the realisation with Hector Bellerin is like, oh, so I'll be going to Villarreal. And then he's thinking, oh, well, maybe staying at Arsenal isn't so bad, because he's essentially going to, you know, an Everton of La Liga. But obviously now these Inter rumours have come true, or these Inter rumours have come out. Now, if I was him, I would take that at a heartbeat, because I'd be really surprised if a club of Inter standard or PSG Barcelona come in for him. So, yeah, I think the Inter deal would be great, but like you say, we should be getting a fee for him.
We can't take an option. We can't take a loan without an obligation.
But I don't think getting anything. I don't think anything getting under 25 is bad. I think 20 million, 25 million is about right for Bellerin. I've got to be honest. I'm a fan of Bellerin. I like him, but he's gone backwards. So I think anything around 20 million is a good deal.
Switzerland just scored, by the way.
No way.
Yeah.
Did Granit Xhaka score?
No, he did not. He did not score, Harry.
Was Granit Xhaka on the pitch? Was Granit Xhaka on the pitch?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, it's a win for me then. It's a win for me.
Man, look at the French fans. If France goes out, I will laugh. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I will laugh. Like, I really will. But
here's me being professional and not having the game on in the background. I'm gonna put it on now. That's what I'm gonna do.
I didn't tell you you couldn't have the game on. We're professional-ish around here. Definitely professional-ish.
All right.
But yeah, go ahead and put it on. It's fine, because I know, like, this should be a good game. But so, you know, the whole right back thing, I think it really depends on Hector Bellerin. I think if he doesn't go, you don't bring anybody in. Like, it's even like, I almost feel like we would need to even get rid of Cedric to make it really make sense. But I know the club is probably just maybe not happy with Chambers and Cedric as just like the only options. So without Bellerin leaving, I don't think you get in a right back at all, you know. And I even think if Bellerin leaves, depending on other areas of the pitch, if those don't get solved, then if we do sell Bellerin, that money could be shifted to the midfield or a creative midfielder, and we can easily see a Chambers, Cedric, Ben White kind of playing in that right back role next season. So I think it heavily depends on what happens with Bellerin and how much money we have in order to address other more pressing issues. Although I think right back is quite important, I think the midfield is way more important, especially because we still need to address 2 positions, creative midfielder like starting midfielder. So do you agree with that, Harry?
Yeah, no, I do. In terms of priorities, I do. Respectfully, I think Bellerin needs to leave for himself. He needs a new start. He needs a new beginning. To be honest with you, I'm bored of trying to protect players like Bellerin and Granit Xhaka from the abuse they receive, and I wouldn't just be comfortable with watching him play at the Emirates next season, making a mistake and just getting abused again. I just think it's a case of just closing that book and giving both parties a fresh start. So I'd be super keen for him to leave. Obviously, obligation to buy isn't ideal, but for me, it's more about taking that energy out of the team. Not that he's a bad energy, but him being there almost encourages this bad energy. So yeah, I'd be super keen for him to go. 10, 15, 20 million. I wouldn't be too fussed, I've got to say. I know he was worth a lot more, but was is the key word. And in the past year, as much as I've tried to defend him, he hasn't been good. He really hasn't. So I think it's time for a new start. And like you say, Ben White, Cedric, Chambers, Ainsley Maitland-Niles, we're a bit like England in the Euros with 4 right backs, but we've got lots of options there. So I mean, one of them surely got to be good enough for the job, right?
A combination of all of them, hopefully. I don't know, have Chambers play the first half and Cedric play the second or something. Just make it work. Make it work. So last but not least, kind of just want to talk about Smith Rowe. Obviously, Aston Villa comes in with another very janky, disrespectful, stupid bid of like 30 million freaking pennies. Like, what the heck? But there's questions around like, what does this mean? Like, is Smith Rowe like, encouraging this on? You guys, I really don't think there's anything to this, but Aston Villa, first of all, they are going to lose their best player. Jack Grealish is probably going to go to Man City. That's being heavily reported. So for them, they have to be looking like they know what that replacement is going to be, or they're going to get this replacement, and the replacement just happens to be our Emile Smith Rowe. The funniest thing will be when, Jack Grealish leaves and Smith Rowe still plays for Arsenal Football Club. Like it's not happening. Like, even so many different things would have to happen. We would have to want to sell. They'd have to come up significantly. I don't think we would sell him for anything less than 80 million. Like, literally, they'd have to give us what they got for Jack Grealish, to get Smith Rowe if we were even interested. And he's going to sign a new deal with Arsenal. He's on vacation or something now, or he's not. They haven't offered him the wages, but they will. If they think it's under jeopardy, they will. You guys, I don't think there's anything to it, and we shouldn't be, worried about it from an Arsenal perspective. But how badly do you want us to whoop them? I want us to kill them. Like, I'm so annoyed by Aston Villa, and I don't I've never cared about them as a club, but right now, they're very much so on my shit list. What do you think?
Yeah, they're annoying me at the moment. I'm finding them really annoying. There's so many different agendas to this potential bid. One is to almost try to prove to Grealish that they're being ambitious and that they want to build a team around him. One is obviously to potentially replace Grealish. And the annoying take from it is almost from our opposing fans or reporters representing other clubs, almost like, well, Arsenal are on the decline, so maybe ESR will consider this move, blah, blah, blah. And that's the angle that's really annoying me, because people have been saying for the past year, if Arsenal don't progress, Saka and ESR will leave, blah, blah, blah. And I don't think they will leave. I think ESR is going to stay at us for many, many years. Even if we're not particularly successful in the next 2 to 3 seasons, I can still see him being at Arsenal because he's still young and he'll want to make that change. He'll want to make us better, a little bit like how Harry Kane wants to make Spurs better. And now he's waited to 27, 28 to get his big move. So, yeah, I'm not worried about ESR leaving. But I just think the offer from Aston Villa is really it's a disrespectful fee, to be honest with you, because we know his potential. And also it's a little bit sneaky because they think, oh, well, here's a guy with only a year left on his contract. They perhaps think he's vulnerable and they're trying to unsettle him. And I get that all clubs do it, but I just feel like it doesn't make sense for them to do it to someone who is a Howland graduate. They rejected money off Spurs for Jack Grealish maybe 2-3 years ago, 30, 35 million when he was playing in the Championship. So I get why they're trying to do it, but I think they've just picked the wrong guy in ESR. I can't see him leaving. And furthermore, why would you go to Aston Villa? No disrespect, but why would you go from Arsenal to Aston Villa? It's just a step. It's just a step down. Aston Villa, of course, have a really bright future and have some wonderful players, but similar to Spurs, take Kane out of Spurs, they're not that good. Take Grealish out of Aston Villa, they're not that good. So It just doesn't make sense for me. So go away with your £30 million. We do not want it. We don't need it either. Actually, no, maybe we do need it, but not for ESR. If you want El Neni, you can have El Neni for 30 million.
And it's further validation that Smith Rowe is somebody that we need to keep. I mean, as many Arsenal fans are desperate for Jack Grealish, if he is the replacement, then why would we? I still don't understand it. Like, Smith Rowe is special. Let's just, I still see, even today, people saying that if they offered 50, we should consider it. Are you crazy? Are you serious? No,
I don't think we realise how good ESR can be. Like we've said many months ago that there's elements of Jack Grealish in his game in terms of his dribbling, his tenacity, his approach, the way he constantly wants to take people on, the way he's fearless. And if you look at Grealish's involvement as a footballer, it's huge. If you look at pictures of Grealish or video footage of when he played us in the FA Cup final in 2016, he was a kid, skin and bones, and he's developed, he's blossomed into a strong footballer. And I think ESR will take the same rise and he'll develop his game massively. So for me, like, ESR could be one of those players that is worth 70, 80, 90 million pounds. He's got all of that natural ability. So at 50 million, like I don't see why you take it, because there's so much. His ceiling is so high. I think we forget about how good him, Saka, and Martinelli could be. So yeah, he's not going anywhere in my opinion.
No, and the club's not even interested in selling. So I don't think this is anything that we really have to worry about. Also, they have to fill gaps in the media, until he signs the new deal, because once he does that, then they won't be able to talk about it anymore. So again, this is nothing that I think that we have to be like really worried about or anything. I think we could just chill. It is what it is. And overall, based on kind of what about Ben White being almost done, Tavares, Lokonga, if you had to rate the window so far based on what we've done, maybe, how are you feeling? Are you feeling positive? And for you, what still needs to get done?
I'm feeling positive. I think we can only be positive about this window. I think we should back the process. We should back the Cronkies in this window, because it feels like we are doing all the things we can to get deals done early. If we sign Ben White, Lokonga, and Tavares, I'd say it's probably like a 6 out of 10 window, because I still think we need to focus on other areas, centre, mid, right back, and even potentially upgrade on a goalkeeper. And I think that's what I'd be looking for. I've said this many times, but it's almost like, how quickly do we want to get back into top 4, and how quickly do we want to challenge? And if we want to get back in the top 4 and try to challenge for those top spaces, then we need to be signing 5 to 6 players. And I'm really confident that we're going to do the business this summer. I really, really am. I've said many times, I don't think Arteta leaves his comfort blanket at Man City without some reassurances. Obviously, COVID changed the market a little bit, but as we're on the final stretch when it comes to COVID, and things are slowly returning back to normal, it feels like the board are ready to invest heavily. So I think we have every right to be optimistic. I know a lot of fans are saying, I don't trust this board. They never spend their money right. Previously, they haven't, but since Arteta's come in, we've spent the money pretty well. So let's be positive. Let's focus on the good things rather than the bad things. And sometimes if we do sign a player like Ramsdale, you never know. They might end up being really, really good. We just have to try to give them the best positive environment that we can. And hopefully they go on to do things and get us back to the top.
100%. All right, you guys, I know this one was a little bit shorter, but we know everybody wants to watch the Euros and all that. And we covered our bases for the most part. Nothing too exciting yet, because nothing is done, but just want to make sure we give like a small update. I'll be back tomorrow at some point to talk about something. You guys know I just see what's going on and just make up the show then, no future planning for me. So yeah, you guys make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel, and make sure you follow Harry at It's DJ Harry on Twitter, and me on Twitter at It's SheKnowSarsenal. Like the video, all that kind of stuff. Subscribe to the channel. Tell me what you think about it in the comment section. And if you're watching this on replay, thank you for watching it, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye, y'all.
Yeah.